everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The New Mutants, number 27 from 1985 by Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz. Now, this cover, I don't know if he's using mixed medium because you can definitely see some zip tones, dual tones here, but it looks like he watercolored here and pencils most likely. This guy is incredible. Bill Sienkiewicz is absolutely wow. So we've got on the cover Cypher, Mirage, and Warlock taking on Legion. All right, so into the Abyss. So we are basically, if you remember on the previous issue, they blew up, or at least we were given the impression that they blew up. Fortunately here, they did not, and Xavier's trying to wake up Moira, calling her out, and here we have our credits with Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz, Tom Orzechowski, and Glynis Wein, and then Nocenti and Jim Shooter editorial. So, all right. The New Mutants are checking on Rain, and she is alive, but real quick here, we got Warlock, and this is oh my goodness. Oh, what is her name? Gabriel. Oh, her name was right here. Gabrielle Haller. She's Legion's mom, Xavier's former girlfriend. And then we got Cypher here. And so we get a little bit of exposition about the previous issue and the catatonic state that she is under, just like Corsi and Friedlander. And Xavier says, he must be a powerful telepath, so he's going to go and use his astral form there. So he watches him using his psi powers and gathers that he is also very powerful, able to throw Xavier out back into the body, if you remember from last issue. So Xavier deduces that he is a telepath and a telekinetic and a pyrotic, which means he can make fires with his mind here. And so Mirage is telling the professor that she's not able to contact her using the rapport that they share. He can't sense her, and wonders if the link can work in that astral form here. Xavier says it's too dangerous, and Mirage says, I won't be alone, Professor. I'll have you to backstop me like you did when I probed Sunspot, remember? Besides, if not, it's not as if we have much of a choice. By the way, I do have a playlist. I've covered New Mutants from the very beginning, starting with the graphic novel till now. So feel free to check out any of the stuff you may have missed. And Xavier says, Gabriel, this is a critical situation. I must know everything about your son. Any scrap of data, no matter how slight or inconsequential, will be of use. And she says, you have it all, Charles. There's nothing more to tell. And of course, he knows she's lying. Xavier is actually the son of Legion. Love this here, how he's drawn here. So, as I mentioned before, he suspects she's lying. So Xavier thinks here, she's lying, and I suspect whatever she's hiding is vital. But what can I do? When she was helpless, I forced myself into her mind. It was to restore her sanity, the noblest of reasons, or so have I told myself, but it left scars that have never truly healed. It was a cure very nearly worse than the disease. I cannot do that to her again. Now she wishes me to do the same to her son. Were I in perfect health, the risk would be considerable, and I'm far from that. And so if you need to see that, that was covered right before the Brood saga. And I have an X-Men playlist as well. Feel free to check that out. I also have an X-Family playlist where I throw both X-Men New Mutants and anything else related to them in there as well. And so Xavier continues, the strain of yesterday's exertion is taking its toll. I'm not sure how much more my body can handle. But too many depend on me. They and I have no one else to turn to. So, um, Gabriel says, have you noticed, Professor, you and the geek look a lot alike? And he says, I see no resemblance. His name is David. Seems pretty obvious to me. Okay, so this is Mirage speaking here. If you don't mind, Danielle, we have work to do. And she's like, sorry, I mentioned it. And of course, Gabriel is, forgive me, Charles, when you saved me, you learned every thought and memory ever hidden, sacred thing I possessed. This was the one secret I swore to keep my own. And so I like Warlock looking in there. Danny, take care. Self hopes you restore the self glow of self's best friend. And so Mirage says, she's my friend too, Warlock. Whatever it takes, I'll rescue her. I'll do it. And heaven help anyone who gets in my way. Rain, can you hear me? Come on, Rainy, answer. You little creep, let her go. And she yells for her. No luck so far, Professor. And Xavier says, which is no more than we expected. I'll shift us onto the astral plane. Prepare yourself, Mirage, he says. And so there they are. And then, of course, once they do that, Rain is coming. I like Bill Sienkiewicz kind of trying to interpret what this would look like here. But Rain attacks. Xavier believes that this was a trap. Xavier self, as you yourself surmise, Wolfsbane should be frozen in her transitional form. And so he thinks in the astral plane, my second strength is a shadow of its normal self, but I must prevail. So here he's taking her out here. Professor, the wolves turned to flame. I'm burning. And so at the same time in Mora's lab, the actually fire engulfs both Danny and the professor here. But they're not really burning, but then suddenly when they go to touch, it's happening to them. And of course, Warlock is like, friend Doug, no. So, all right. So I'm going to narrate a little bit because there is a lot of dialogue here, and I just, for time's sake, cannot read every word that Chris Claremont puts in. Chris Claremont is extremely wordy. As fantastic a writer as he is. Real quick, like in the previous issue, Bill Sienkiewicz is not kayfabing these. He is actually using some kind of grid to do the bricks in the back. So, all right. So, Danny has fainted in the astral, in her astral form. Xavier used his own psychic powers to stop the fire, and then he notices the ground is vanishing. And here he can notice that Doug and Gabriel are being swept into the maelstrom. And he caught them, and you can see that here. But he is very weak here and now realizes that the walls are closing in on him. And then he's like, nope, I'm not going to allow it here. And you can see Professor Xavier exuding all this psychic power here. And Xavier calls out and says, if you can hear my thoughts, David, I've no wish to do you harm, but neither will I permit you to abduct and imprison us here. And you can see that all three are now in this bubble, and there's a line here. And there's some thoughts here from Gabriel here. And he says, can't block them out. They're tearing at him like knives, he says. But he's going to ignore them. And so he calls out to Legion again and says, your raw power makes you the most adversary, lad. But mine is a tempered by skill and experience, and you are no match. So look at that. Pretty cool here. Professor X showing how powerful his mind truly is here. So Doug is trying to awaken Mirage here. And Xavier here, he thinks that Doug is too he knows too little to be frightened, and he should be scared. And now that he's holding himself against this wall, maybe now is the time to see if he can locate Moira and the others here. And then he notices something like a city in the middle of the maelstrom here. And Rain says she can hear Danny says she can hear Rain, and Dr. McTaggart is with her, and they're in danger. Look at this art. Damn, Sienkiewicz is really good. He can't believe that a child is this powerful here. And Professor X is like, he's innocent, but he needs to strike him as if he was the deadliest supervillain. And you can see him here cracking these walls here. And Legion screams, but Xavier just won't stop here. And so he sees young Legion here, and he's like, "Mother, why are you hurting me?" And then realizes father, and then so he recognizes Xavier here. Look at this, the unibrow. That's pretty cool. Bill Sienkiewicz, man, he just inks and whatever. He just lays his ink, and it don't matter where it goes here. So, as I mentioned before, Xavier is his father, and now he realizes this. So, and then he's grabbing everybody here and is going to pull them out here. But he loses Doug and loses Gabby, but does still have Mirage. So these are the people inside Legion's minds here. And so the three of them speak through him here. So this is what I mean. Legion has personality here. And there he is here asking for help here. So, and he's like, "My son, I never knew. Gabby never told me. His voice is that of a child, little more than a baby." So, and he says, "Forgive me, Danielle. You're trusted in me to make the right decision. I pray I am. David is an innocent and utterly helpless. I cannot abandon him." And so, here we have the Multiple Man and Warlock here. And he's like, "What do we do?" Talking to the Multiple Man here. And now all of a sudden, we see Legion open his eyes, and he is smiling. At least that's what it tells us here. It doesn't really look like a smile, but once it tells, oh no, yeah, he smiles here. So, and then he goes back to sleep here. And so Xavier keeps telling us, basically all this is telling us how tough this is. And look at this. A lot of duotones, a lot of zip tones. Bill Sienkiewicz. How I wonder what the script was like. That this was his interpretation of it. So very cool here. So. And so this is all the stuff going on inside Legion's mind. And there's Rain and McTaggart here. And so this, as I mentioned, this is all in Legion's mind. So we are just going to sort of not really read. I'll just sort of narrate here. But Rain saved McTaggart. And McTaggart, of course, loves her like a daughter. We saw that in the previous issue here. So he calls her mummy, because they're from Ireland here. And so Xavier is looking for them, looking for everyone that was trapped in there. And here we have he's found Mirage and Cypher and Gabrielle here. And this is one of Legion's personalities. And Xavier's just doing the best he can. Again, look at all these zip tones and dual tones being used here. And so you can see he's firing at the Xavier here. And it hurts him psychically. So there is still pain here. And this thing's going to fall on him. But someone is holding it. Another one of Legion's personality, Jack Wayne. So he's the telekinetic. So it looks like those three personalities, all three have different powers here. So, all right. And so he's using this here to move these vehicles away. And now he's going to help Xavier. And so Xavier saw that the young Arab, the one in the previous that he was trying, is the one with the telepath. And so, and these personalities do not all get along, but are all aware of each other. And Jack says in this dome here is where you'll find he says here, you'll find the kid's essence, whatever's left of its true personality. The Arab's responsible for the dome and the military hardware. He keeps the kid prisoner inside and uses the weaponry to keep the other side's selves away. And Xavier says, but he's a telepath. How? And Jack says it's David's head. The kid creates the reality here. Whatever he wants, he creates. So the Arab gives him nightmares and the boy brings him to life. Hopefully that'll change that. Tip the scales in our favor. Shatter the dome maybe and free Davy. So, and you want that, Jack, even though that freedom you may mean your dissolution, your own death, when you and the other side selves are absorbed into the core personality. And he's like, them's the breaks. What the heck? We're all part of the same head except the Arab, so we won't really be destroyed. And so Xavier here he's not really sure here, but you know, what's he gonna do at this moment here? So you can see more of the attacks here. And so he sees something, and this is Gabby here with the skunk head, and they're like, you, and she's like, you, and they're holding her down, and she's kind of losing her grip. And she goes, let me go. And she says, you don't understand. That's a terrorist. He murdered my dearest friend, David's godfather. He tried to kill David himself. And so it must have been Legion himself here. So Chris Claremont, between Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz, it is really difficult to know what the heck. You know, when I was 11 years old when this stuff came out, and I'm like, what the heck is all this here? And she finds another personality here, Cindy. So they ask if they can help her, and she says, sure, but why would I? And she says, you know, for David, for yourself. And she's like, you don't care. You only care about David. And she goes, you know, nobody cares about the rest. And then Maura's like, you know, if David dies, you all die. And then she's like, watch how you talk to me, Lady Doc. I'm one of those powers. She uses her snap, and it goes boom. And she's the one that creates the fire and the one that blew up the lab. And look at her, she throws the apple at Rain here. She says, mind your manners, Fuzzy, or I'll singe your fur. And you can see a Wolfsbane growling here. So Doug and Danny are holding all these at the Eiffel Tower here and trying to keep them away, but then they all melt, the flames here, and here comes Cindy and McTaggart and Danny, and you can see that Mirage and Wolfsbane hug here. And so we're in the final 3 pages here. And so after introductions are made, it says here, and Cypher's like, we're supposed to trust someone who torched the lab for fun. And Moira's like, have a little charity, Douglas. She could have burned us as well at any time she chose and chose not to. And he's like, and if she changes her mind, and then he says, I want to know more about that Arab. And Cindy says, he's nicer, and he's nicer than Blondie, better looking too. And Danny's like, stay out of this, Cindy. You owe us an explanation, Miss Holler. And so Holler eventually tells him David was the only survivor of a terrorist ambush in Paris. I always suspected, because Charles was his father, that my son was a mutant. He must have used his powers to kill the attacker. That Arab was the assassin's leader. And so McTaggart gathers and makes a quick observation here. It says, David's a high-order psi, potentially as formidable a telepath as Charles. It isn't beyond the realm of possibility for him, in the chaos of a panic catalyst, manifestations of those abilities too much and far too soon to have absorbed the psyche of the life he was taking. In the process, the Arab must have absorbed the talent that destroyed him. And Danny and Gabby's like, that's obscene. And she's like, that's the only explanation. And so Cindy says that Jack says that if they crack the dome, will they die? And McTaggart says that she doesn't know. They've been splintered for too long, that each one may be too strong. And they said that the Arab isn't an extension of David. The way Cindy and Jack are, he's separate, independent consciousness here. So they doubt that he'll surrender. And so now Jack and the professor here will talk. And so basically here he says, told you this was going to be hard. That babyface butcher's got almost as many tricks up as in the sleeve as I do. Bet on this, though. Bad as things seem, in the morning they'll be worse. And the professor likes, wonderful. And so professor thinks about how weak he is here. He doesn't know if he'll be strong enough to do what needs to be done here. And Jack says, there's but one sure way to do the job, my friend. Give the Arab a test of his own bloody medicine. And you can see here, giving a knife. And Xavier says, I'm a teacher, Jack, a healer. I don't kill. And this here, so you can see that the Arab is keeping watch here. And so Jack says, I'd take any idea. And then just talks about what the Arab has done. And he says, don't delude yourself, Charles. The Arab's been taking revenge ever since. And so we get now to the last page, and you can see Jack is going to give him a knife. He says, normally I'd bet you don't have the luxury of choosing between absolute right and wrong. You go for the greater good, the lesser evil. Am I right? Your world's gray and ambiguous, dealing mostly in maybes, might have beens, what ifs, half truths, because everything you see and do in and of the mind. This is different. Oh man, I really do love the dual tones. Your boy's in pain and in prison. It's not like his mom. This wasn't his choice. This nightmare was forced upon him. The Arab forced his way in here and took over, and it's been a nightmare ever since. You can end that if you've got the guts, if you really care. And Xavier says, let's go, as he holds the knife. And so the conclusion in Soul War. Oh, look at these screen tones here. Oh, just a beautiful. Man, oh man, Bill Sienkiewicz here. We'll just end it here with this wonderful illustration. So, The New Mutants number 27 by Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz. like and subscribe, and I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.